Hello, everybody. Welcome. We're just going to start like that. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Monday Night Therapy. I am here with a USC guy, Tim Prangley, and he covers the USC Trojans for USA Today. He's part of the Voice of College Football gang, and he covers USC over there. In fact, he has a show right after this one, so I expect you all to go over and watch his show about USC because it's time to meet the neighbors, the new neighbors. Because we're Nebraska, we're not the new kids on the block anymore, thank God. We can start abusing new people, and that would be the USC Trojans. How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I guess that makes us the kids on the block.
It does, but this has been, I went and I looked on our site. We did an article in 2022. I mean, we've known you guys are going to join the Big Ten for a bit, but it still had to be a huge shock when all of this happened, and basically the Pac-12 just completely ceased to exist. And I mean, what was your first thought of, oh boy, we're going to be in the Big Ten with those people?
I had joked about it for a while because, Mike Bowen kind of, the question was asked of him. He's like, so, what's the situation here as far as realignment? What's USC doing? What are your plans with the TV contract? And he flat out said everything's on the table. And a lot of people thought that meant like maybe go independent, whatever. Because the Pac-12, as much as we did have great football in the Pac-12, we really did. I mean, a lot of people didn't respect it, but we've had some great teams in my lifetime. It just wasn't going anywhere because what is it, like 80% of the population lives on the eastern half of the United States, and then on the west side, it just did not the population to support it. And then people talk about how large the most of the people on the West Coast, are right along the coast where your Pac-12 footprint is. But the problem is a lot of them are professional sports fans. They're not really as much college football fans. So, I mean, the writing was on the wall for this. I was talking about it. I was joking about it for about a year. My family's all from the Midwest. So my mom, dad are from Michigan, Grand Rapids, Michigan. So, I've always followed just the periphery, all my cousins and my uncles. I've always followed Michigan State and Michigan. So, I mean, I said, it would be a great fit for USC. We played the Rose Bowl. It seems like we played everybody in the Rose Bowl for years. It would be a great home for USC. The problem was the geography and travel, etc. But I knew that USC slowly was going to start falling more farther and farther behind being in the Pac-12 or being not in either the SEC or the Big Ten.
So you're good. You're happy this is happening. Kind of, if somebody that walked you out on a plank and said, I don't know, get eaten by a shark, a shot, or join the Big Ten, you're like, I've joined the Big Ten.
Yeah, I was fine with it. All things being equal, if we could have got a decent contract that would have made USC competitive, I would love to keep the Pac-12. There's great fan bases in the Pac-12. There's, Washington State, Oregon State are getting completely screwed. Two of the best fan bases in the world, totally screwed out of this whole thing. But it's just, this the era we're in, right? This is the new college football world where it's run by ESPN and Fox.
Yeah. So where do you think? I mean, the season isn't that far away. I mean, it's not like, well, we have a whole summer. Where do you think USC is going to fit into the pecking order of the Big Ten? I mean, we might as well just go right there.
Yeah, I mean, long term, I think I think if USC can, long term in football, if USC can, and they are getting better in NIL, in this space right now, it just seems to me like there's Ohio States and the Oregons of the world, and then everybody else. You saw that in the offseason, the way that both of those schools did an amazing job. And that's why I do believe that both those schools will be the ones pushing for the conference this year. But I think USC has shown that it could be that kind of school. It doesn't have a Phil Knight, I mean, I'm kind of hoping maybe you guys in Nebraska can get Warren Buffett to love Husker football, and then you could have your own little Uncle Warren, maybe like they have, and you can get those $1 billion for him. But right now, Oregon and Ohio State, until proved otherwise, are just playing on a different playing field than everybody else.
Yeah.
Sorry. So to answer your question, I put USC in that next group, right behind there with like the Penn States, right? Yeah, USC. And then it's gonna be interesting to see what, with Rule, you guys in Nebraska, what's gonna happen with Fickle, Wisconsin, that level of moving up. I mean, I know you get ready to talk about Iowa, but Just that middle group. I think USC fits snugly in there right now. In year 3 of Lincoln Riley. Sorry, USC's, believe it or not, because everyone's talked about USC and money for years. The has been terrible at US. I mean, sorry, I shouldn't say terrible. Just it's not competing at the level of like a Texas A&M, a Texas, Ohio State. It's just not there. So everyone's got to start building up for that, otherwise they'll be in trouble.
So it just went out of my head.
That's because I rambled for an hour, John. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I'm a little burned out tonight. Lincoln Riley, you mentioned Lincoln Riley. I'll be honest with you. I'm not a huge Lincoln Riley fan. I just think he's kind of arrogant. He's certainly a quarterback whisperer, but I mean, what's your impression of Lincoln Riley? And I guess let's just go right into it. 8-5 last season. It was a disappointing season for USC. Caleb Williams drafted, what was he, number 1 overall pick in the draft. Great quarterback. Honestly, I didn't like Caleb Williams, but then there was that game where he went up in the stands and his mother consoled him. And he got so much abuse on Twitter. I thought, I'm not a big fan of his, but he doesn't deserve that shit because he obviously cares about football. He cares about winning and he cares about his team. And for people to do that to him, I thought was a little bit much. But what do you think of Lincoln Riley as your coach and the whole he doesn't care about defense thing?
I'm curious to hear from the people why. A couple of things. One, I've never met a football coach that doesn't care about defense. I think that narrative is so completely overplayed. I mean, it fits for people that don't like Lincoln Riley. But I mean, John, have you ever at any level, even at the Pop Warner level, right, at the Pee Wee level, have you ever met a coach that just doesn't care about the defense? I mean, I can see
you say that. You say that, and you know what? I prepared for tonight. This is the coach that didn't care about defense. Do you recognize this?
Oh wow, yeah, that's a hell of
You recognize that? You recognize this? This is the coach that didn't care about defense. This was the 2007 Nebraska USC game. I went out and looked up our history together. And what I came across was my articles in 2007. And I had done an article that literally was entitled Holes. And all it was these photos of our defense. And this one in 2007, somebody cut out the number 13 and put a guy in a wheelchair in it. And that was, it was before Twitter, obviously, but that was the one that was the big meme of the game. Okay. I blew that. Bill Callahan.
That's Callahan. That's why he went out and got Bo Pelini. He's just, okay, screw this crap. We need to go get some defense. Yeah. So you go get Bo Pelini, which I don't know. There's kind of some things in life where maybe you pull the trigger a little too quick. You want to go back and the horses out of the barn or whatever. I don't know the idiom, but Bo Pelini came in there and it is about defenses. I mean, the black shirts, right? You guys, I mean, as much as we always think about, as much as I always think about like the option and Tommy Frazier's and your great running backs, your great quarterbacks. Those Nebraska defenses in linebackers. I mean, that's also something that Nebraska's very proud of. And that's pretty bad. I think it was schemed to spread you guys out. I think that's what we're seeing there. And as I just glanced at those images, but yeah, there's that looks a lot like we had with our Speed D and our whatever the abortion we saw on the field the last 2 years in a row at USC. Historically, two of the worst defenses ever to fielded by USC. And now part of that is what Helton and the previous administration in Heritage Hall at USC just ran the program completely into the ditch. Oh, sorry. They finished a job that the NCAA started for about a decade and then just ran that program right into a ditch. And then you had Riley come in. The cupboard was bare. I mean, USC, we've always had great coaches, but we always got good players. And when it's kind of like, it's really a lot like, Nebraska, you get a Bob Devaney or, Tom Osborne, right? If you get a great coach at Nebraska, you're going to win national championships. You're gonna have 10-win seasons. You're gonna not just win, you're gonna dominate, right? USC, same thing. You get a John Robinson, a McKay, a Carroll, right? You get the right coach in there. We're not just gonna win, we're gonna dominate. And the problem we had at USC is the NCAA hammered us. I don't want to go back into that. And then the administration just simply, I don't know what they were doing. They just were asleep at the wheel. And so when he walked in the door, there was zero line depth on either side of the. Sorry, we had a great starting offensive line. That's what you saw. That's how we won 11 games. That's how Caleb won the Heisman Trophy. But it was razor thin. And you saw what happened at the end of the season when our left guard Voorhees went down in the championship game, and our center. There was no one behind him, zero behind him. So even Caleb on one leg was still kind of keeping us in the game, actually coming back. But then we lost 2 linemen, and that was the end of it.
So I cut you off on Lincoln Riley. Finish the thought. What you said? There's not a coach that doesn't care about defense, and then I, took you way off track. Lincoln Riley. Where's he at coming into 2004, and what's going to be different or better, or how's he going to put all this together entering the Big Ten?
He brought up a good point. He said, like we were there, it was at one of the scrums, and he basically said that, look, this is something we had to do, period, here at SC. Yes, we're going into the Big Ten. Yes, we have to get a lot bigger. But if we wanted to play national championship caliber football, we had to get better no matter where. If we stay the Pac-12, whatever. USC, we talked about those good USC teams. You do think of offensive lines, you think about defensive lines, you think of size. And so he was really quick to dismiss the idea it was just for the Big Ten. But anybody realizes that, the one thing when I think about the Big Ten is I do think of quality, depth, and big guys inside and all along the line to be able to be competitive in the Big Ten. So I think he made an effort to do that. I think last year he was humbled. If he was arrogant, he was very humbled. He basically said, look, everything we're going to do, this is back at the end of the last year, said everything we're going to do is going to be to make this defense elite. And he absolutely did. Okay. And that's literally what he did. He went out, he stole Danton Lynn from across the road, his roots with the Ravens, had a great season with UCLA. Backs that up because Eric Henderson, who was a defensive line coach for the Rams, he goes out and gets Matt Entz, who was a multinational champion at North Dakota State, and Doug Belk, who is from the Saban tree and has spent time as coordinator. He's going to be the cornerbacks coach. So he's gone out and he's got the guys, and I think that they're putting money towards. They held on to Bear Alexander. It was a big push for Bear Alexander at NIL. USC 11th hour threw the money up to keep him, retain him. But unfortunately, when it comes to the middle, and we know about defense, the middle of USC's defensive lines could be terrible. The narrative on Riley is that he doesn't care about defense. I think that's false. That it's in his DNA. It's going to take a long time to change DNA. Does anyone here think that Nick Saban last year was the same Nick Saban that coached at Michigan State? I mean, these guys evolve, Right. So to say that that's DNA, more like just an evolution. And I think that he learned his lesson that you just can't shoot out everybody.
So in the Pac-12, I mean, the conference that existed, how are the fan bases together? I mean, the Big Ten there's a lot of hate. And I don't really know if the Pac-10 or the Pac-12, well, the Pac-8, I'm old. Was there much hate in that conference between the fan bases, or was there really much, going on? You said that it wasn't well supported. Tell me about the different fan bases. I guess what I'm asking is, how much transition do you think you're going to have for like dealing with fan bases? Because I think that's the most interesting part of football, just, outside the just sports itself. Is how we all interact.
Yeah, you're going to have those natural rivalries, right? I mean, you have the Civil War up in Oregon, you have the Apple Cup in Washington. So you have those built-in rivalries. You have SC, UCLA, which for years when they were competitive, and both teams were competitive when I was young growing up, in the 80s and into the 90s, there was a lot of animus between programs. Recently, it's been, it's always been everyone hates USC. Just the way it is. And then recently with Oregon's success, there has been a lot thrown that way as well. So yeah, no, there's some bitter rivalries in football and basketball. Same, absolute same thing with Arizona. Everyone hates Arizona. I mean, it's not going to be new, and quite frankly, I know it's going to sound like arrogant, but everyone's always hated USC. So we say we love it because that, if they don't hate you, that truly means you're irrelevant. So if someone hates you, that means that you either A, in the past have gotten underneath their skin, or right now there's someone that they want to knock you out.
Well, I did tell you before we started my second favorite college cheer.
You did.
Which is you can't spell suck without USC, and I get to use that again now since you're in the Big Ten or in the Big Ten, and we're going to see you often. This does not describe Iowa. How fast do you think you can learn how to hate Iowa?
It's gonna be hard because again, what they do at that stadium is pretty damn special with that children's hospital that they have. I know you guys.
See, they use that as a shield. The fact is those kids have had to watch that offense, and you should feel sorry for them.
They haven't watched any offense, but yeah, I do hear. I've got a couple of good friends through the Mark Rogers network that are great Iowa fans. And I'll say they came out here to the Holiday Bowl a couple years back and really just took it to that Helton team. That we lost Slovis the second half. Couldn't move the ball, so the defense was on the field forever. And then in the fourth quarter, but just imagine this. Imagine it was probably the last time Iowa's offense was unstoppable because they literally would hand it off to the running back. And it was like a rugby scrum for about 5 to 6 yards, 7 yards, just right down the field, just shoving it right in USC's face. So, and at the end of the game, there could have been a lot of chippiness, but there was, I guess, I don't know. There's definitely no hatred from Iowa towards USC. I thought there might have been, going back to that Brad Banks, Orange Bowl way back. Was that 2002, the 2003 Orange Bowl? I can't remember. Yeah, it was around that time. But the Iowa fans were great. I've always, in general, loved Big Ten fans. From Penn State, the Rose Bowls, and then having you guys come out in those games, in that home and home. It's just what I love about you guys is your fan base. We're hospitable, fun, laughing, having a great time, and not only just fun people, good people, but really new football. And so that was just a great experience. I think that might be a little bit refreshing for me going from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten. There's a lot of knowledgeable Pac-12 fans, but there's also a lot of not very knowledgeable Pac-12 fans. I think you're born in the crib with, how to understand football book with you when you're a child in the Midwest. So it's going to be fun and interesting to see that.
Yeah, I before the show, I told you I hadn't thought about USC in a long time, and we're going to play this year, this November. I think it's 16th out in your area, and I thought, okay, well, I'll go out and look up the history of Nebraska's football, contest with USC. We have never beaten you. I did not realize this. Maybe I hit it back and hit it away from myself because we've already been hurt enough. But we have played, I think it's 5 times, and we are 0-4-1 all time. The series goes back to 1969, 31-21 UNL loss in Lincoln, and that was followed up by a 21-21 tie in Los Angeles in 1970. And then we have the 2006-2007 games, but we have never beat you guys. And we have the worst record against you now of any Big Ten team. What do you think of that?
Well, one, this is such a small sample size. I think that's going to even itself out as we, we're talking about 4 games, you say 60? What was the first one? 69. So you're looking at, 4 games in 50 years. And it looks like we got 2 of those right in the sweet spot where, and actually the 69-70 weren't McKay's greatest years. He was coming off of a 68 championship then, but probably still pretty solid teams. But it just seems like, to tell you how I feel about Alabama. We've played Alabama. We're 2-6 against Alabama. But it just seems like we always hit Alabama when we're playing, not great football, and they're at the top of their game, So that number's going to balance out. I think a lot of these things are going to balance out. Really, I love the fact that USC does not have a losing record, I believe, to any team in the Big Ten. historically.
Well, you guys, I mean, let's be honest. You guys have the advantage of, it's like Nebraska for most of my life. We had to go to the Orange Bowl. We had to go to Miami. You play Miami in their own backyard or Florida State in their own backyard. You guys have had the advantage of having the Rose Bowl and all the Big Ten teams having to come out there and play you.
I've never understood that though, John. Maybe you can help me. You can help me with that one. I've never understood the advantage of playing in like 70-degree weather. Great in open air. In a stadium that truly is not USC Stadium. And the thing is, it's not like that Big Ten team comes out, and it has like a 2 days for, 1 day land, a day for a walkthrough, and then play it on Saturday. Traditionally, the Big Ten team comes out for about 10 days for a whole week of festivities. I don't know. I don't know about the whole thing.
Here's how it worked for Nebraska going to the Orange Bowl. The refs always screwed us. Okay, there you go. I could get into, like, I think it was the 93, 94 Orange Bowl against FSU, where, my God, all the calls did go Florida State's way, and that's when Bowden, I think, won his first national title. But it always did seem to me that, now you are going to have to, November, you're going to have to go into Big Ten places and play in the snow and play in the really crappy weather and stuff like that. I guess one of the questions I had put up before this is, you'd mentioned that Riley said you had to get bigger. How do you think playing in the Big Ten is going to change you guys?
Well, I really don't know, because that's the big question. I've talked to Mark about this a long. Who's going to have to change more? Are the Pac-12 West Coast teams going to need to adjust to, what I'm going to call the Big Ten offenses? I mean, I know that you have the Ohio State, which is kind of your outlier when it comes to offense. Probably the closest things to like a Washington, Oregon, USC offense. You're going to know some leave UCLA a lot out until they figure out their own mess. But I wonder how much it's going to be, and just over the years, how great were those Big Ten defenses? And how great were the USC, the Pac-12 offenses, right? Because we talk about how bad the Pac-12 defenses are. What is it? Is it the really superior offenses that are beating up on defenses? Or the Big Ten? Is it these really great defenses that are taking out these offenses? Or is it a combination of both? And I was really hoping that Washington wouldn't be so gutted. I mean, obviously they lost their coach and they lost their players. They lost a bunch of guys to the draft, etc. They're going to be way down. USC did not really feel its need in the middle of their defense on defensive line, so they're not going to be nearly 100%. But you will see a really strong Oregon, and then UCLA is a mess. So we're going to have to wait a couple of years to see how it goes. I don't think that the styles are going to change too much, but I do think that you're going to see probably a little bit of bending towards the middle for both.
Well, Scott Frost made the comment that the Big Ten is going to have to change for us when he was hired, and God help us, we saw how that went. So whenever you say something like that, how much are we going to have to change it? So it's like, PTSD comes up. But I think if you look around the Big Ten, do you have the attitude that the Big Ten, besides Ohio State, is 3 yards in a cloud of dust?
No, I mean, I think that if Penn State ever gets a quarterback, they get the broadside of a barn, they could be really dangerous.
True. Purdue's DNA is wing zinging the ball over the place.
You guys won the Dylan Raiola sweepstakes. Right. The kid's got really good arm talent. So, and you guys have some. Do you guys have some pretty good young quarterbacks? Wide receivers coming in.
We have a gob of wide receivers. Here's the thing with our wide receivers: they look talented. But given the past year, that last year, we actually didn't have quarterbacks. We had like guys that were dressed as quarterbacks and put them in the quarterback position. It's hard to tell. I think that we do have a talented receiving core. We have talented tight ends, but we're going to find that out when, now that we might have a really good quarterback that actually can throw the ball to them and not the other team. That's kind of a key for Nebraska's 2024 season. But across the Big Ten, I mean, you look at, for example, Purdue, they're going to wing zing the ball over the place. Let's see. Minnesota's going to run nickel duo at you all day long and then throw some passes over your head. Iowa doesn't bother with offense, and I don't think that they will this year. And the reason for that is they have probably one of the best well, they do. They have one of the best defensive coordinators in the nation, and Phil Parker. Northwestern will drag you into a rock fight with a combination of being happy to gain 3 or 4 yards at a time until they don't. You know, that's the thing about playing Northwestern is you think, oh, look, a bunch of nerds. And then they irritate you to death by the time the game's over. And maybe you beat them by 3 or maybe you lose by 3. You know, Ohio State has got, well, they're going to be Oregon, aren't they? They're both those teams are just going to have players all over on offense that are going to score 40 points a game and you have to stop them. Michigan, I don't know what anybody knows to think about Michigan with Jim Harbaugh leaving, and you know, a lot of their team is gone too. Who am I missing? Maryland, Rutgers. How do you guys even, the whole idea of going to Maryland or Rutgers to play sports? Doesn't that just kind of, what the hell?
I like travel. I got a family in Maryland in the Bethesda area. So, I mean, okay. I'm going to be enjoying that one. You know, I got somewhere to stay, and then hopefully I can get a press pass for the game. So bam, look, you know, I got a plane flight and I'll enjoy a road game. Yeah, it's hard to wrap your heads around because, like, so for instance, you know, the Big Ten, a lot of people might snooze about the idea of going down to Arizona or Arizona State or playing, or for instance, here's a perfect example. Going and playing Oregon State. But see, we got history there. So we've got history with Oregon State. So those games to us, they mean something. I'm going to wonder how much the Big Ten fans are going to gear up for, you know, well, I don't know. I mean, I guess, you know, there's enough history with USC that maybe there might be interest there for them. But I'm wondering how much is USC fan going to care about playing Indiana, playing Rutgers, playing, right? Whereas these teams are maybe have some great teams, great players, you know, but there's no history. There's no hatred. It's like, you know, it's almost, it will feel like a non-conference game. However, you know, the bigger games, right? Like like Nebraska, Iowa, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Wisconsin, where there is some history, there is some mutual brand respect. Those games might be, but I've always wondered how the USC fan and vice versa is going to take to these, like, you know, who are these guys? You know, it's like, it'd be hard to get up for some of those games.
All right, let's take some comments. I've largely ignored my comments so far. James Boardman asked, is Miller Moss for real as a starting quarterback? It didn't look like Louisville cared to play the bowl game. Thanks. I assume Miller Moss is your guy. I haven't looked so much at your roster yet.
Yeah, again, this is going to come across very arrogant, but I mean, there's not many times teams play a USC in a bowl game and they don't care about that game. It wasn't like they had a bunch of people at Louisville that opted out of the game. You know, they had their starting team. It was like a top 30 defense. You know, it wasn't like we were up against some, like, I don't know, 2023 Trojan defense. So and we took it, and he took it to them. 6 touchdown pass. I mean, any game, I don't care who you're playing, your quarterback throws 6 touchdown passes. That's a hell of an outing. It was also a big, you know, coming out party for our then freshman wide receivers. You guys will get to know the name Jacoby Lane. He's going to be just an insane talent. A lot of people already know Zachariah Branch, but then and Deuce Robinson as well. So these guys are the guys that played. Now you get to see also a little bit of that Holly Bowl game. You saw Mekhi Lemon come into his own. Those 4 guys, along with some of the veteran guys they pulled in through the portal and on the team, are going to be one of the more underrated Big Ten receiving cores that are really going to turn some heads. As far as Miller Moss, he's a very cerebral guy. It's not like he's a 2-star or 3-star. He was a 4-star quarterback, you know, California quarterback, was through all the camps, you know, was well known. He does not have the talent, the arm talent or the ability of Caleb Williams, but quite frankly, not many people do. There's going to be a definite step down, but it's going to be different. I was talking to one of the dads of one of the offensive linemen, and it just changes the game with the Miller Moss. He's going to be in the pocket. He's going to be easy to make those pre-snap reads. He's going to go through his progressions to get the ball out quickly. A lot of times last year, you had Caleb, because the defense was so poor, because the defensive line was terrible, getting hit, getting strip sacks, getting holding penalties because he's back there scrambling. The linemen don't know which way to block, so you get these holds. So it's going to be a different type of football. And I think that he is more than capable to light up any defense. The key, as always, is going to be how well does that offensive line support him. I think that they are getting better. I think last year there was not the chemistry. They tried to bring in some guys. Some guys didn't even make it in through the portal. Other guys didn't perform the way they should. And that's why you saw Caleb go from being Superman to pedestrian in some of those games. It wasn't that he was overrated or that he didn't have the ability. Obviously, we know that. It was because he had absolutely, look at that Notre Dame game. He had no protection last year.
Right.
If that happens with Miller, it's going to be a very brutal year. Anyone talking about 8 wins, better throw out the window. It's going to be a dogfight in every game if our offensive line looks like what we saw last year.
Okay, Santiago Orozco says, who does Nebraska hate? Well, here's the thing with this. It's not just change when you guys are coming. It's a bigger change for the 4 teams that are coming from the Pac-12 into the Big Ten, but it's still a big change for the Big Ten. And the example of that is Nebraska will not be playing Minnesota this year. I live in Minnesota. My son, my youngest son, I call him the rotten son, just so you USC fans know that. He graduated from the University of Minnesota. The bastard anyway. But we're not going to play them this year. And we were just getting into this groove where there was the quadrangle of hate between Nebraska, Northwestern, Wisconsin, and Iowa. And because those 4 teams just, none of them were good enough to win the Big Ten, but they all were good at dragging each other down on the ground. And, Nebraska's been pretty terrible for a while yet. So let's move on to this. Same guy. Is Matt Rule the answer better than Frost? Well, Scott Frost wasn't the answer to anything. So yes, I think we all have I think everything you see in Matt Rule shows that he is a coach that actually takes his job seriously, and he's done all the right moves. He's pulled in players that, quite frankly, I didn't think we could get. We look like we have the makings of a good team this year, and I guess we're just going to see what happens. I'm going to take this one. Scott Schrader says more Nebraska fans probably show up at the USC game than USC fans. Let's go back. Let's take this and make it a broader thing. Now, USC, the Pac-12, didn't get the TV contracts. Is that because there just wasn't support from the fan base? People weren't watching, or because the people running the conference were just so unbelievably terrible at what they were doing? I mean,
yeah, Larry Scott the Pac-12 had been just incompetent for a long time. It was really a reflection on the entire conference. Obviously, what they want, Larry Scott's goal was to make parity in the Pac-12, and the problem is the parity is just boring, and nobody cares. Like the SEC's that. As much as they want to talk about the whole SEC, the whole conference is great. No, it's very top heavy. As much as Big Ten wants to talk about this and that, no, it's very top heavy. There's been 3 guys kind of slugging it out for the conference pretty much, every year in both conferences. So, I mean, with USC down, with UCLA down, both in the LA market, it was a natural evolution. It just started fading. When USC's winning, like I went back, actually, I've been watching some of the older games, just getting ready for the season. Think about just some kind of a watch party thing. And you watch those Pete Carroll crowds, and I'm telling you, it rocks like any place, I mean, you had they had years of 93,000 sellouts under Pete Carroll. But USC has to compete with, I know people don't want to hear it, but they compete with the Lakers. They compete with the Dodgers. They compete with the Rams. You talk about teams that win championships. And if you're a losing team in LA, if you're a loser in LA, and what they mean by a loser is you're not a national power, nobody cares. And there's a lot of apathy. I would say, I've been going to SC games my entire life. There's about 50,000 core SC fans that show up night in, night out. They're going to be at the Coliseum. That last year of Helton, people had enough. And then some of those 50,000 did shrink. But in general, over the years, 50,000 show up. Then if they're winning, now you look at about 70 to 75,000. And if the right team comes in, it's not like a Fresno State. Actually, no, sorry, they travel well. If it's not like a directional school that's coming in for the non-con game, you're going to get 80 to 90 if, again, everything's clicking. So USC, I don't know about this. I don't think that your situation, especially is so fresh this first year, I think there'll be a lot of interest in tickets and a lot of interest. I know there will be a lot of fans, Nebraska fans, either ones that live here in LA, in the LA area,
Right.
and travel.
Right.
I know there's gonna be a ton, because I know you guys travel very well. But no, there won't be more Nebraska fans than Trojan fans at the game.
Okay. What in terms of sports? I mean, we know when we do YouTube stuff, we talk about football because, to be honest with you, the rest of the sports are fun and interesting, but they don't pay the bills. But in terms of overall sports, Nebraska, it's obvious Nebraska loves volleyball, the whole volleyball day with setting the world record and stuff like that. Nebraska loves pretty much all of their sports, and we have a healthy following. And and I'll be honest, there's always the thing from like somebody like you where you look at USC and you are in a town where there's a lot of pro sports, and you look at Lincoln, Nebraska, and people always go, "Well, there's nothing else there." From regards to that, yes, that is absolutely true. People would always say, "What else is there to do in Nebraska?" And I would always say, "Hey, there's planting and irrigating and harvesting going on," right? But we do not have the pro sports. And I guess this is a long way of asking this. What other sports have a very strong following at USC besides football? Football is obviously the big one.
Strong following. If you're talking about like attendance for games, or you talk about fans, I'd have to say that USC basketball. My dad's been a season ticket holder since I was like a little kid. Never really been a sellout kind of crowd. Sure, you had those years where you're playing really well, you're ranked in the top 10, whatever, the top 15, you're going to get big numbers. But we just walked through this whole season, which was one of the weirder basketball seasons I've ever watched at USC in my entire life. There was all the hype behind Bronny James coming in. But John, when I went into the press room to have those interviews with Andy, it was a weird feeling. I had no idea what was going to happen. I did not know he was going to be let go. Even at the end of the season, I think it still kind of shocked me that they let him go and brought in Eric Musselman. But USC basketball, no. It's funny. You would think with this year that with the talent they had, the problem was, again, this USC is usually snake bitten. They just have this curse. We've had 2 cardiac arrests, and year over year, and you're this for your star player, like literally your star player comes in. The baseball, and this. I mean, USC has 12 nationals. Has 12 College World Series victories. It's more than anybody. But they've been down for a number of years. Andy Stankiewicz is there. He's trying to bring it back together. They're on a hot tear right now, but they're going to need to win the tournament in order to get into the regionals. I don't know.
Let's stay there for a moment. Nebraska baseball is year by year perennially is in the top 20 for attendance every season. And I can tell you this for certain: joining the Big Ten, I don't want to say it ruined our baseball program, but it definitely damaged it, because it's really hard to recruit players that are going to go play in snow, number one. Number two, the Big Ten Conference as itself does not really give a shit about baseball. Number three, you have teams like Michigan, Nebraska certainly does, Ohio State certainly does, Purdue, Illinois, Maryland, although they did terrible this year. That was shocking. Rutgers. Some of the teams care about baseball a lot. And then unfortunately you have Penn State, Northwestern, teams like that. And the problem with them is it's not that they're bad, it's that they don't schedule anybody. I think Penn State still plays Elon like 30 times a year. So their ERA ends up, or their RPI ends up down in the 270 range. And even if you beat them, your RPI gets drug into the toilet. So just be aware of that. I am hoping that with the 4 schools joining, that there's more presence around Big Ten baseball, and that something happens in the conference that, the conference, since we joined, they've replaced facilities. They've replaced coaches that stayed around for years being terrible, but just be aware of that when you're joining the Big Ten. Your volleyball program, I didn't realize USC baseball had won that many titles.
Well, most of them were under Rod Dato is basically the Nick Saban of college baseball. I mean, he won 11 national championships, a number in a row back in the 60s and 70s. And that's where the majority of those were. But if you look at rosters from that time all the way through the 90s and into the early 2000s, just MLB rosters full of USC players. California is a hotbed for Major League Baseball. I mean, you look at on rosters, there's lots of these guys. They come from Southern Orange County, Southern California, etc. And but because of the scholarship distribution, I can go into the whole detail. But the way that scholarship distributions go, USC is a very expensive school to go to. So if you're getting a partial ride or how they break up the scholarships in baseball, it's kind of hard. You saw a lot of teams. Like the Cal State Fullertons, and schools like that have these great programs with good coaches. UC Irvine, even Oregon State, where basically tuition's a song and a dance. But then how come schools like Vanderbilt? There's a lot of other really expensive universities, Stanford and other schools that do very well. I think UCLA's got a pretty good baseball program that's coming in. And USC, we'll see where USC goes. USC could have the ability to do that, especially with NIL. NIL is going to change that, John, what I just talked about. With NIL, if there is the interest and there's the alumni to support it, it can help with that scholarship situation. So I'll be interested to see what happens. But UCLA is a decent program often, and they do take baseball pretty seriously in the schools that are joining.
Well, the rest of the article, let's see. Women's basketball, Nebraska holds a 5-3 record over USC. Volleyball holds our volleyball team has a losing record, 7-2. This article is done in 2022. Has a losing record to USC, so we're going to have to change that. Baseball is 0-2 all time against USC, 2013 and 2005. So not a big bunch of data points.
Yeah.
Women's soccer our women's soccer team has a winning record, 3-2 all the time record against USC. Softball, the two teams have never played in softball.
Well, so we don't have a softball.
Changes.
We don't have a softball team.
How does that work?
The one thing is the craziest. Again, my sister led her in 3 sports, and she was on the club soccer team before. There wasn't a women's soccer team for the longest time at USC. It's amazing because, again, another thing, baseball and softball is played throughout the country. But it's just, if you had like one of those heat maps, and you look at where all the whatever's, it would be just littered in Southern California, especially for softball players. And the fact that USC has never tapped into that by having a team, it has been a big question. A lot of it's been, how do you get an on-field stadium for softball? And because we're not in there's not a lot of room to build in downtown LA. So, I mean, it's like, that has been always an issue. Have been thrown out there. Scholarship limits have been thrown out in the past. But the fact that in Southern California don't have a softball team, that's pretty egregious. I think that I don't understand. I don't understand why that never happened, but that's a fact.
Now, you mentioned Stanford and Cal. I personally am happy they are not coming to the Big Ten, because I look at those schools and I think, I just don't. I think that oh God, I'll just say it. I just think that they're more worried about their politics than they are worried about being in sports, and they're more worried about activism than they would be just being in a conference where they're going to compete. I think a lot of people looked at that and said, well, they're big academic schools and the Big Ten's a big academic thing and they should join. And I just thought, no, we don't. I don't want them. I don't think they care about their biggest sports, and that's football. I think Stanford's perfectly fine winning the Directors Cup every year because they have 83 different sports nobody else has.
Right.
What do you think about Cal and Stanford leaving them behind? Did you wave at them?
Fan. I'm a USC fan. I'm not just a fan. I have 2 degrees from USC. So my hatred for the Cal school, for Cal, Stanford, more like more of a rivalry, an academic rivalry for those schools is deep. So I'm very biased. Yeah, I mean, Cal really hasn't invested in their football in years and years and years. They were great for a while. I mean, even some of those Tedford teams back in the 2000s around
Right.
Aaron Rodgers, and Marshawn Lynch. I mean, they were, Chariot. They had some good teams, but since then they have not invested in their football. Stanford, on the other hand, Stanford's had good coaches, and they had a run where they kind of, it was really Stanford, Oregon, and Washington that carried the mantle, and then most lately Utah for the Pac-12. And so Stanford, did its share, especially with McCaffrey years and with Andrew Luck. There were some pretty good teams, but they've flatlined. Yeah, I mean,
right.
For these programs, this was the absolute worst time for this, because who knows what are we looking at if this all had happened back in 2011, 2013. Maybe Stanford is getting a serious look from the Big Ten. But the fact that they let their program flatline like they did, and like you said, they're so into the Olympic sports and winning is, Stanford's just a different beast. I mean, we talk, some schools say that, like a Notre Dame, we care about academics over football. That's BS. I mean, Notre Dame is a football school. Stanford truly does not give a crap about winning football national championships.
Right.
They don't. They're more about how many sitting justices of the Supreme Court, or can they get into a vice president or president? That's what Stanford thinks about. So,
and then you know what, that's fine. That's fine.
And that's why they're not in, John. I'm with you.
Don't
that's why
drag it into my conference where, I think that a lot of schools care about, like Ohio State. Okay. I look at Ohio State, and what you look at is a university that is what I think they have, like a 10 or $12 billion budget. They're massive. They're not just massive in a university. They're massive in medical centers. And at the same time, Ohio State gives a shit about everything they do. And I just look at it and I kind of go, you can try to be excellent in everything. You can try to be good academically and good in, sports at the same time. Being good in sports doesn't mean that you've dumbified everybody. And I think that's really the attitude that I think you're going to find that attitude in a few Big Ten schools as well. And
you know what locked them out, John? John, it wasn't their football team. I think every university in the Big Ten looked at the Stanford band and said, "Oh, hell no, hell no." We really have bands here, like our legendary band leader, Art Partner. He came from, I dropped the ball here, some Midwest school, maybe a Michigan school, I can't remember. He had way back in the 60s, and he just retired a year or two ago. Just amazing. We know how important a band is, right? Especially in the Big Ten. It really, USC had that as well. And sometimes, Stanford was just an absolute embarrassment when it came to that band. So.
Oh, I had one more question. You're going to have to go do your own show here in a bit. And I hope, some line people follow the other. Okay. One more question, I guess. And that's this. What are you going to do with all the bags of money you're going to get now?
From whom?
From the Big Ten.
Oh, well, USC is undertaking a massive football only facility. They just did not too long ago. They did the McKay Center, but it was really an athletics center. This is going to be a football only facility that's going to rival anybody in the country. And I think that's where a big chunk of this is going. Yeah.
So they have it earmarked already.
Well, and probably that Lincoln Riley buyout along with his contract. I think that's gonna, that should have told everyone what was going on. When SC was throwing that much money towards a coach, we should have known that our payday was getting. Yeah. That should have been. I did, John. I'm dead serious. I was driving cross country. I was on my way to Grand Rapids, Michigan for 4th of July, and I was driving through Indianapolis, of all places, believe it or not, when that news broke. I was at a gas station filling up the car when the news broke on the radio, and I thought. First, I was like, it was like a shock. Even though I was expecting something to happen, I didn't expect the timeline of it happening. It was just boom. Right. Nobody knew. It just boom. It just dropped, and it's a weird feeling, and it still hasn't sunk in, right? I mean, even the Big Ten. I know you guys are big. Well, I mean, Nebraska, you have a unique viewpoint, because you guys, again, we're talking about you were the new guys on the block as well, not too long ago. I think it's going to be really interesting. I think it's going to revitalize the Big Ten. I really do. I think it might, if the schools like Nebraska, like USC, like Wisconsin, can get back to where they should be. I think they could absolutely turn the tables on the SEC, and it will be the premier college football program in the country. I really do. I think the money is going to be there, and I think they will do that.
We do have one super chat from James Boardman. Best place to eat near the Coliseum.
Oh wow, there's too many. I mean, you're asking to where to eat in downtown Los Angeles, but places. There's a place called, this traditional, going all the way back to the John Robinson years when I was a little kid. Matter of fact, we were eating. It was after a loss, and we're eating there, and all of a sudden, guess who walks in? John Robinson walks in and sits at a table a couple tables down from us. It's called El Cholo's. It's got if you're into drinks, I don't really drink, but there's, they've got the best tequila and margaritas around. They've got some good stuff there. And then, if you want, before the game, there's lots of sandwich places, lots of delis, some really good delis, but there's Philippe's, home of the French dip, as the story goes. A number of places. You can't go wrong. You're in LA, you got to get some real Mexican food. That's all I'm going to tell you. If you like Mexican food, or if you like El Salvadoran food, then yeah, you're in the right place.
Oh, okay. Anything else you want to conclude with? I know you got to run. Yeah,
I got to run, but John, thank you for having me on. I have not been shy about saying how excited I am about Nebraska. I truly mean it. That was one of my favorite games, and not the game itself, but the tailgating with Nebraska fans. Way back in the day, I was a lot younger back then. I just had beers and conversations, and it was not a lot of, Ohio State, complete opposite. Cannot stand Ohio State fans when they came out to the Coliseum. Some of the worst. When I went to the shoe, and I was like, there was like rivers of urine everywhere. It was disgusting and really gross, complete opposite of what I enjoyed with Iowa and with Nebraska and with Penn State fans. So I'm looking forward to going to the Big House. That's going to be that's a bucket list thing for me that I'll be hitting up.
Yeah.
Just excited and appreciate the invite to come join your show. And again, look forward to doing this again, because I'm really excited about the Big Ten.
All right. Well, take care, and thank you for joining me. We'll have you back sometime, because we're going to play each other this year.
Absolutely. By the way, LFG, you actually nailed it. If you guys want fast food, you got to hit Tommy Burgers. I don't know what's in the chili, and it's probably not meat, but I will tell you, it's got a nice jalapeno kick to it, and it's a tradition. USC is get a big double cheeseburger, absolutely delicious. All right, John, I do got to run.
Yep. Take care. Okay. So that was Tim with USC. We're going to be playing USC. I believe it's November 16th at the Coliseum, or at USC. I think that, when you Fred Sacco with what's the gravy situation out there. I did not do a good job of paying attention to the comments. Santiago Orozco said, "Do you want to go to Oregon, John?" I'd like to go everywhere. I don't get out a lot, and but I don't know. Maybe that'll change in the next couple of years. Minnie says, "You can go to the John. You can go to the USC game versus Minnesota this year." I probably could, and maybe I'll check the schedule and we'll see what happens. Fred Sacco earlier, when we were talking about the SEC being top heavy, says very top heavy. So the opposite of an Iowa cheerleader. Think Queen wrote a song about them. Let's see what LFG said. Nebraska needs to start a beach volleyball program. I think Nebraska is one of only 2 Big Ten teams that have beach volleyball programs. I want Wisconsin or Penn State, I think, is the other one. Husker in Hanover says that is changing, John. My earlier comment about baseball. Baseball is becoming important to the Big Ten. I don't know if it is. I don't know. I would like to see it become important to the conference. So that the conference starts stressing like strength of schedule and starts putting a little bit more pressure on some of the, like Penn State, I guess. I always think about them. I don't know if they've improved their schedule. Iowa really didn't. I thought when Rick Heller came in, they'd start playing a tougher schedule, and I don't think they've done that at all. I don't know what RPI Iowa has this year, but I look at what happened in the softball tournament. In the softball tournament, every SEC school made the NCAA tournament in softball. Every one of them. Not every SEC school has a softball team, and I was surprised that USC doesn't have a softball team. But I think I would like to see where the Big Ten gets to the point their prestige goes up, and we start becoming, I don't know, getting 4 teams into the NCAA tournament on a regular basis. Fred Sacco with John's jealous of their endowment. Yes, I am. What else we got going? The Big Ten baseball tournament starts this week. Nebraska finished second in the regular season behind Illinois. Illinois came into the weekend and swept Purdue, and Purdue didn't do us any favors whatsoever by winning the game. And then Nebraska didn't do themselves any favors by losing the last game against Michigan State, but they did win the series. So we're going to see what happens with Big Ten baseball, the baseball tournament. And, Nebraska should be in the NCAA tournament unless they completely fall apart in this Big Ten tournament. And I don't see that happen. Let's see what else. Well, I'm going to continue to try to have guests on. And, we have a whole conference, but we have a whole gob of, new teams that are joining that we really don't know that much about. So that was our entry to USC. I hope to find, I will be interviewing an Oregon guy coming up. That won't be live. Some of the interviews I'm going to do won't be live because people just can't make a 8:00 show on Monday night. MK says stadium renovation thoughts, John. I think it's a really bad time to be spending a lot of money on a stadium renovation. I know that they want to do stuff. To be fair to everybody else, and Mike Jackson, one of my writers, reminds me of this. I don't get to a lot of games. I can't remember the last time I sat in South Stadium. And for years when I did get to games, I was on the field as a photographer. So I haven't had to sit in South Stadium since, probably 20 years ago. Or no North Stadium either. But I think that right now, college football and college sports are going through so many changes that I would not go out and prepare to spend a shit ton of money. Like the whole $450 million that we're going to tear part of the stadium apart and we're going to, lose attendance for 2 years while we're trying to do this stadium renovation. I think that was a really stupid idea, really. They haven't finished the other one. The new Osborne Legacy Complex is not completely done from my understanding. So maybe finish that, win some games, get to a bowl game, have a winning team. Maybe you should do those things. And then you can go back to donors and they'll be happier people and they'll go, yeah, here's some money. And then you could start talking about, renovating more of the stadium. Let's see. Clay Casselder, I didn't read this whole thing. We'll see what he says. Clay Casselder says, if I was a baseball coach, I would win every game. 1 pitcher, 1 catcher, 7 guys, 3 feet in front of the batter. Just block it. I don't know if that's legal. And number 2, have you listened to the radio with those guys talking during some of the games? Those balls come off the bat at 100 miles an hour. I'm not standing 3 feet away from that thing. My God. And then Clay says, I bought a hammer at a garage sale. Okay. What the hell is that about? What was I going to do? You know what I did today? I went to the chiropractor for the first time since December. And I screwed up my knee last week because I'm old. I guess young people screw up their knees, but my body is not doing the best right now. And I'm not just talking about my brain problem, but I went to the chiropractor today for the first time in many months. And I was laying back and he was going to adjust my neck. And normally, he just, he gets ready and it's like, and I ask him every time, you can go ahead and end it all. You can just pull my head off and we could be done and everything. I'd be thanking you. I'm sorry about the mess, but you could do that. And he'd be, oh, no, no, no. But he tried to adjust my neck. And normally I lay back and I just learn how to, you relax the muscles in your neck. And today I could not relax the muscles in my neck. And we both realized, gee, you have a problem. So it's been kind of a mess lately with the body. Okay. What else going on? I published a video today on the History Channel about the 1892 Michigan Oberlin game. Check that out. I'm not sure of anything else, but I will be doing my best to have Monday night shows with interviews. Mostly because I enjoy talking to people. I thought Tim was a good guest. I wondered how he was going to react to him. Before we started, he showed a lot of the guest shows up right at 8 p.m. and they're kind of hard to, it's hard to have any pre-conversation. But for Tim, he showed up a few minutes early, and I told him you can't spell suck without USC, and I didn't know what his reaction would be to that. But that is my second favorite college cheer, and now we get to do it again because we're going to start playing USC. In case you're wondering, you guys should know what my first favorite college cheer is, and that is that's it for tonight. I think I'm going to go, play Fallout 76, or started watching this show on Netflix called Bodies, which looks kind of weird and interesting. And that's it for tonight. And thank you guys for your support. Thank you for showing up. And I hope you have a good week and take care of yourselves. Go Big Red. I guess that's my outro. Take care.